that this is a government that just keeps on getting worse. That Labour presented themselves in the election and indeed in the run-up as a party of moral probity. Since then, we found out that Sir Keir Starmer himself has taken more goodies and freebies by far than any other politician. And he's known about this fraud conviction for Louise Hay. And every time she went on the media attacking the Tories, which she did relentlessly, she was hiding her own previous convictions. And I know they're spent, so technically she doesn't have to declare them, but that's not really the point. As Keir Starmer said, you can't be a lawmaker and a lawbreaker, and yet his party seems to have them.
Transport Secretary Louise Hay has resigned just hours after revelations of her fraud conviction came to light. The Labour government has plunged into chaos, with this being the first resignation in just 5 short months. A female politician caught red-handed, with her hand in the cookie jar, an unthinkable act from a party that prides itself on being the guardian of integrity and justice in British politics. Stay tuned for this shocking twist and the latest breaking news from around the globe. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel.
It's pretty dire, and the list of things they're getting into trouble over, most of this is absolutely self-inflicted. Taking away winter fuel payments, an act of cruelty that's going to put 100,000 pensioners in real poverty and hardship this winter, which is despicable. Their dishonesty over their tax plans, which I'm afraid to say that we should have been much harder on the media and us and Conservatives ourselves. We should have got more evidence and honesty from the Labour government, because we now see that their tax plans, which were in their manifesto, or what they said in their manifesto, has been very different from reality. We've got the issue over Rachel Reeves' claims about her own CV. You've got the government talking this country into a recession. You've got the Chagos Islands issue, and I think that's going to continue bubbling, because I think we're going to see that there was a lot of Russian stirring behind that potentially. You've got, as you say yourself, the IHT, the inheritance tax with farmers as well. So there's an awful lot going on, but most of this is absolutely self-induced. And when they took over, we had the fastest growing economy in the G7. We're now almost in recession.
Clearly, there's no scenario dire enough to trigger a general election. It's simply not going to happen. But are we all destined to resign ourselves to living in frustration and discontent with the current state of affairs? Or will the Labour Party step up and collaborate to find a solution?
This government has got its time and a massive whacking majority. They've also got unity, so 3 things still. And he said they need to change direction, and change direction fast, and actually get people back in work, deal with the DWP, deal with the significant rising numbers in worklessness. These are real moral as well as economic issues. That's what the government should be doing. It should be tightening up on immigration massively, and the figures yesterday were dreadful. So there is so much to do.
It's truly shameful that Starmer and the Labour Party have everything they need to act, yet squander their opportunities on stagnation and incompetence. Instead of addressing unemployment, immigration or the crisis at the DWP, they excel only in making hollow promises and masking their weaknesses with a facade of fake unity. With such a massive advantage and still achieving nothing, this government isn't just failing economically, but is mired in a moral crisis. Starmer, with his characteristic indecisiveness, is dragging the entire country into the abyss.
The government is going to do it? No. Because I'm afraid to say they haven't learned the lessons of the election, and they believe that the election was absolutely, a rejection of the Conservative Party, but it was not a rejection of conservatism. We lost our vote because people didn't think we were delivering. And we've now got a government that is on the economy, on immigration, on ethics, frankly, going massively in the wrong direction.
Starmer and his team are turning incompetence into a new hallmark of politics. Instead of confronting reality and fixing their mistakes, they wallow in self-delusion, convinced the problem lies with others, not themselves. The economy is plummeting, immigration is out of control, and morality is nowhere to be found. This is classic rudderless leadership. No direction, no solutions, just floundering around while dragging the country further into decline.
I think you're going to see something close to panic within Labour circles, which is odd, given their massive majority and given they've still got time to turn it around. But it's certainly going to be pretty interesting for you.
It's laughable that a party with such an overwhelming majority is showing this level of panic. Starmer and his team have not only demonstrated their incompetence, but also proven that even with the advantage in their hands, They have no idea how to steer their ship. The coming months are bound to be filled with political farce, fully exposing the Labour Party's weaknesses and internal divisions.
Well, let's wait and see how we judge the Labour Party over the course of this whole administration. It's too early to tell. And I'm not going to sit here and say this Labour government is riddled with sleaze. It's too early to say that. But I go back to my earlier point. Be careful trying to say that you are whiter than white. He's not just in the United Kingdom, but around the world.
Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party, wasted no time appointing Heidi Alexander as the new Transport Secretary. Yet one critical question remains unanswered. Why did he originally include Louise Hay in his cabinet, knowing full well about her conviction? This decision raises serious concerns, not only due to lingering ambiguities, but also because of the baffling personnel choices Starmer seems willing to make, especially when dealing with such sensitive issues. In her resignation letter on the morning of November 30th, Hay recounted an incident from 2013 when, at 24 years old, she was mugged in London. After reporting the crime to the police and listing her stolen belongings, including a work phone, she later discovered that the phone had been left at home. Hay admitted that she failed to inform her employer promptly, acknowledging it as a grave mistake for which she could not offer justification. This situation, far from being a simple oversight, reflects a serious lapse in responsibility and professional conduct that even she has conceded. Upon receiving her resignation, Prime Minister Keir Starmer expressed gratitude for Hay's contributions to the government's transport agenda and voiced confidence in her future endeavours. However, such platitudes ring hollow. It's unclear why someone who committed such a significant error would be lauded. Before entering politics, Hay had a career in the insurance industry at Aviva and previously served as Transport Secretary. Notably, she had challenged the Conservative government on bolstering police officer numbers. These factors only make her appointment to a prominent position more perplexing and contradictory. Meanwhile, following Labour's sweeping electoral victory, Sheffield MP Louise Hay openly criticised Starmer's handling of the P&O controversy. This served as a major blow to Starmer's credibility, particularly as he publicly rebuked Hay, stating that her actions did not align with the government's official stance. This incident highlights not only managerial shortcomings, but also deep divisions within the Labour Party. In reality, Starmer faces mounting external criticism alongside unresolved internal challenges, further complicating his leadership and the party's cohesion. A Conservative Party spokesperson did not miss the opportunity to criticise Hay, claiming that she failed to conduct herself with the dignity expected of an MP. They also questioned why Keir Starmer appointed her to the cabinet, particularly when she was entrusted with a massive £30 million budget. Given the swift pace of Hay's resignation, many suspect there are unresolved details that have yet to come to light, fueling public scepticism about the transparency of government operations. This challenge only underscores the instability within Starmer's administration, with growing voices within the Labour Party calling for him to swiftly change strategy and adopt a firmer stance in his decision-making. Is this a sign of an emerging political crisis, or merely the beginning of endless turmoil within the Labour Party under Keir Starmer's weak leadership? Only time will tell, but no one can deny that the current situation is precarious and unpredictable. The Prime Minister bears the ultimate responsibility for ensuring that every member of his cabinet is above reproach and worthy of the public's trust. However, it is worth noting that the Labour Party has spent considerable time attacking the Conservatives over scandals and perceived moral decline. These scathing accusations aim to undermine the Conservatives' credibility, undoubtedly affecting their electoral prospects. But ironically, Labour itself is far from immune to scandals, despite often adopting a sanctimonious tone when criticising others. In just a short time in Parliament, Labour has been plagued by scandal after scandal, from the clothing-related controversy involving Kakir to an MP being involved in a brawl, to another fabricating their job application, and now the Louise Hay incident. This is deeply unfortunate because, rather than focusing on crucial work, politicians are preoccupied with mocking and attacking one another. However, the reality is that in any organisation, be it political or religious, errors and scandals can occur, from the Church of England to the BBC. Instead of excessive criticism, we must recognise that individuals are fallible. What truly matters is how an organisation handles such issues when they arise, and it's important not to be overly harsh in judgment. Before the election, Keir Starmer declared he would take a tough stance on those who made mistakes, insisting he should be judged by his actions, not his words. However, his decision to appoint Louise Hay to his cabinet, despite all the uncertainties and unresolved issues surrounding her, is clearly one that warrants reconsideration. This is especially true given that Hay had previously accused Rachel Reeves of lying on her CV and LinkedIn profile, a revelation that not only damaged Reeves's personal credibility, but also tainted the Labour Party's reputation as a whole. Yet, this issue is merely the tip of the iceberg. More importantly, the Prime Minister was reportedly well aware of an ongoing police investigation involving Hay. If the case has advanced to court, it suggests not just suspicion but a matter serious enough to require judicial scrutiny. This has left many baffled as to why the Prime Minister failed to make a clear statement at the outset, right when his new term began. He should have disclosed the investigation early on, allowing the matter to be dealt with transparently. Perhaps had the issue been clarified from the start, Louise Hay might have continued serving in the cabinet, and the situation could have been resolved openly. Instead, the government's attempt to obscure the truth has only added to the confusion and mistrust. And now, as Hay steps down from Parliament, the media has excelled in exposing these missteps and efforts at concealment, bringing everything into the public eye. When discussing Louise Hay and her past conviction, some argue that the incident occurred more than a decade ago, and therefore she deserves a second chance. This is the reasoning put forth by certain Labour supporters who hope time will allow the matter to be overlooked. However, even though her conviction may no longer carry legal weight, her fraudulent actions and the resulting sentence still cast a long shadow, particularly in politics. Such behaviour is often seen as a significant barrier for anyone aspiring to advance in their political career. Fraud of this nature is never regarded as a minor issue, especially when it involves individuals seeking positions of power and responsibility within society. So why has Louise Hay's history of fraud not hindered her ability to remain in politics and even rise to a senior position in the cabinet? Hay remains an MP and could potentially continue her political career. However, the critical question is whether she can remain in the cabinet despite such serious controversies. While some politicians in the past have been granted opportunities to return after a period of time, holding a privileged position, not just as one of 650 MPs but as a member of the cabinet, where only 21 or 22 people govern the country, makes past scandals particularly unforgivable. This raises a very clear question. Who will demand that Louise Hay address this matter publicly before the media and the public? Finally, does this incident reflect internal conflicts and betrayals within the Labour Party, serving as an example of the chaos in modern politics? The revelations about Louise Hay are bound to spark intense debates about transparency in the cabinet. They will also lead the public to question whether this is an isolated case or if there are more secrets within the Labour Party that remain hidden and are not meant to be revealed. Now, let's return to the question, why is this government so inept? This is not a rhetorical question or just an opening for criticism, although there are countless reasons to criticise. This is a question that needs to be answered clearly. This indictment lists major mistakes, not in any particular order, such as Lord Ali's gifts, the suit, glasses, rubber boots, and the penthouse apartment, the ending of winter fuel payments, the concession over the Chagos Islands, the increase in national insurance for employers and the lowering of the insurance threshold, inheritance tax on farms and family businesses, Labour Party members campaigning against Donald Trump, cabinet chaos over assisted suicide, Rachel Reeves's record, Sue Gray's ups and downs, and the presence of figures like David Lammy and Louise Hay. In addition to the clear and easily avoidable mistakes that have been highlighted, one might ask whether there is any connection between all these factors. Some critics argue that, although not widely acknowledged, the current government is far more left-wing than the image it tries to project. They claim that the government tends to oppose anyone, except for the large, powerful corporations that the Labour Party is too afraid to challenge, who is trying to make a living independently. There seems to be a contradiction in the government's policies and goals. While they claim to support the vulnerable, in reality, they consistently disregard the working class, who are struggling to survive in this economy. There is a vague, unappealing ideology lurking behind these decisions, and this issue will be revisited later. But even if it exists, it cannot explain the widespread incompetence we see today. If Sir Keir Starmer were truly decisive and had a clear vision, at least a small group within his own party would strongly support him. However, the reality is quite the opposite. Almost no one praises Starmer or his government except those being paid to do so. They will always defend him, but there are few outside of these interest groups who speak up to defend a government that is rapidly losing the trust of the people. Does anyone remember 3 months ago when some people eagerly declared that the sensible people were back in charge, bringing hope to the country? The answer to this question may not lie in what people think. Today, there is growing concern that Britain is gradually losing vital skills in essential industries, from digital literacy and engineering to family doctors and public services. But perhaps the more worrying issue is the severe decline in a skill that Britain once excelled in: democratic politics. Politics is not a field that can be learned from books or abstract theory. It is not like accounting or law, which Sir Keir might be familiar with.